Imagine a file so explosive that those in power would rather torch their own credibility than let you see it. A list that could expose not just one man's crimes but an entire network of the wealthy, the powerful, and the untouchable. That file exists. It was sitting on the Attorney General's desk. She admitted it herself. And now, suddenly she claims there's nothing to release, nothing worth showing, nothing the public has a right to know. But ask yourself, if there really was nothing to see, why would politicians and insiders fight so desperately to keep it hidden? That's where this story begins. A congressman stood up and dropped an amendment that could have changed everything, a demand for the full release of the Epstein files, with no filters, no edits, no excuses.
Is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, you got to love the gentleman from Georgia when he says that he worries about the deficit and the debt. My question is, why the hell did you vote for the big ugly bill that adds $4 trillion to the debt? It makes no sense. At this, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to urge that we defeat the previous question, and I will offer an amendment to the rule to immediately bring up to the House floor H.R. 4405, the bipartisan Epstein Files Transparency Act introduced by Representatives Khanna and Massey under a closed rule with 1 hour of debate. Mr. Speaker, tonight in the Rules Committee, Democrats offered a motion, several motions, to allow a vote on the floor to actually release the Epstein files, and Republicans on the committee just voted to block it. Time and time again. The only reason it won't be considered on the floor immediately after this rule passes is because of 9 Republicans on the Rules Committee who voted no. Now, with the previous question, I will give the entire Republican conference another chance to vote to release the Epstein files. The only other chance to vote on it this week. And as I just said, the resolution Republicans just voted on in the Rules Committee is a glorified press release. It is non-binding. The Republicans are pretending to do something because they're feeling the heat at home. But it won't even come to the House floor this week, Mr. Speaker. We can't even get a commitment for when it's coming to the floor. The bipartisan bill we are offering, if we defeat the previous question, would actually release the files. It would have the power of law. It would not be a glorified press release. Ask yourself, Mr. Speaker, why would anybody want to stop this bill from getting a vote? What are Republicans so afraid of? Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of my amendment into the record, along with extraneous material, immediately prior to the vote on the previous question. And to discuss that proposal, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California, the sponsor of the bill, Mr. Khanna.
Without objection, the gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the American people, Republicans, Independents, Democrats, want the Epstein files released with the victim's identity protected. Now, most people don't understand how this town works, so I'm going to try to explain this really simply. Congressman Massey and I introduced a bipartisan bill to release all the Epstein files and to make sure victims were protected. There are 10 Republican co-sponsors of that bill, including MAGA stalwarts like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, including Lauren Boebert, including Tim Burchett. And we have the votes tonight to pass it. But what happened is, in the Rules Committee, they don't want to have this vote tonight because they know they're going to lose, because they know their own members want to vote for it. What's even sillier is they have this non-binding resolution. So I thought, surely we would vote on a non-binding resolution. They don't even want to vote on the non-binding resolution in case Donald Trump gets slightly offended. They don't even want the vote on the non-binding resolution tonight. Now, the president is paying attention, not just because his favorite Congressman Thomas Massey is involved. He's paying attention, and he said, okay, let's release. He directs the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, let's release and ask the courts to release the grand jury testimony. Here's the problem. The grand jury testimony is largely about Epstein and Maxwell, not about all the rich and powerful men who abused, assaulted, and abandoned young women. Those people are still being protected. And by the way, the courts usually don't release grand jury testimony. But you know what? The president is hearing the American people. And the president knows that if there's a vote tonight, this body overwhelmingly would vote for the release of the files.
30 seconds.
I don't
Additional
need
30
more than 30
seconds.
seconds because I need 10 seconds. This question is, whose side are you on? Today, the Democrats are on the side of the people. The Democrats are on the side of the children. There are 10 Republicans who are on the side of the people and the children, but the entire Democratic Party is on that side, and the Republicans have chosen to protect the rich and powerful men who've abused our children. It's wrong, and that's the clear difference tonight.
His proposal was simple: force every member of Congress to go on record. Yes, vote for transparency. Or no, stand with secrecy and the protection of predators. There would be no room for vague statements, no room for hiding behind process. It was the kind of bold move that doesn't just shake the halls of Congress, it terrifies the people who've built their careers on protecting elites from accountability. Because this wasn't just about files, this was about trust. For decades, ordinary Americans have been told the system works for them, that justice applies equally to all. Yet the reality feels like the exact opposite: a government that bends the rules for billionaires and insiders while silencing victims and gaslighting the public. When Ro Khanna introduced that amendment, he wasn't just asking for papers, he was forcing the country to confront the question nobody in Washington wants to answer: whose side are you really on, the people's or the predators? But the moment that amendment hit the floor, the pushback began. And at the center of it was Pam Bondi, the Attorney General whose role has become a symbol of obstruction. It was Bondi who once went on camera and admitted that the Epstein files were literally on her desk. Her words, not speculation. Her admission fueled hope that at last there would be real transparency. But then came the reversal. Out of nowhere, Bondi declared there was nothing to see, nothing worth releasing, nothing to give the public. To millions of Americans, that wasn't just a change of mind, it was a red flag. It looked like a deliberate cover-up, a decision to protect predators rather than expose them. And this wasn't lost on Khanna. He called it what it was: obstruction. Blatant, deliberate, and dangerous. Because when an attorney general blocks evidence this critical, it isn't just about one case, it's about whether the entire system is rotten. Who is she shielding? Why? And at what cost to victims who have been silenced for far too long? Then came the next battlefield, the House Rules Committee. This was the place where Khanna's amendment could have advanced to a full recorded vote for every lawmaker. That would have been historic. Imagine the public finally seeing, in black and white, who stood for transparency and who stood with predators. But instead of letting that happen, the committee blocked it. 7 Republicans voted to bury the amendment, to make sure the question never even reached the floor. But here's the twist: cracks began to show. Ralph Norman, a Republican, broke ranks and joined Democrats in supporting the release. That act of defiance was small, but symbolically massive. It revealed that even within the GOP, there are members who are deeply uncomfortable with this secrecy. Chip Roy, another Republican, skipped the vote entirely, raising eyebrows about whether he didn't want to be forced into a corner. In politics, absence often speaks louder than words. Still, the amendment was blocked. And in that moment, the frustration of ordinary Americans grew into something bigger: rage. Because this wasn't just a vote about Epstein, it was a referendum on government honesty. Every time politicians block transparency, public suspicion grows. People begin to wonder, if the system hides predators, what else is it hiding? If lawmakers refuse to let sunlight in, are they complicit in the darkness? That's exactly how Khanna framed it. He made clear that this isn't about one file or one man, it's about whether citizens can believe anything their government says. If they lie about Epstein, what else are they lying about? If they cover up for billionaires, who will they ever hold accountable? And then, cutting through the noise, came a voice from outside politics: Elon Musk. In his usual blunt style, he mocked the absurdity of it all. He pointed out how certain leaders repeated Epstein's name 6 times in their speeches while telling the public to move on. Musk's conclusion was simple: stop dodging, stop spinning, just release the files. His comments were a lightning rod, amplifying public anger and exposing fractures inside the GOP. Because when a billionaire like Musk, who usually plays both sides of political debates, takes a direct shot at the hypocrisy, it resonates. He gave voice to what millions of Americans were already thinking: if you have nothing to hide, why are you hiding? If these files don't matter, why fight so hard to keep them secret? And if the government can't be trusted to tell the truth about this, what else are they covering up? The defenders of secrecy tried to push back. They claimed releasing investigative files would set a dangerous precedent, that it could expose innocent names. But Khanna shut that down quickly. He argued this case is completely unique. Think about it, a convicted predator with ties to the most powerful people in the world. An attorney general who went on record saying she had the client list on her desk, only to backtrack. A president who promised transparency, then failed to deliver. And the possibility that these files don't just involve American elites, but foreign governments and national security risks. This isn't a typical investigation, it's a scandal that cuts to the very core of democracy and trust. Khanna's argument was straightforward: if there was ever a moment to set aside standard rules, this is it. Protect the victims, of course. Redact personal details where necessary. But don't insult the American people by pretending that hiding the files builds trust. Transparency is the only path forward. Without it, the rot only spreads deeper. And that's the point so many in Washington fear. Because this scandal, at its heart, isn't about Epstein alone. It's about a system built to protect the powerful, even at the expense of justice. It's about politicians who wag their fingers at ordinary people while covering for their own. It's about broken promises, hypocrisy, and a culture where elites skate free while victims are left voiceless. The public sees it. They know what's happening. That's why this moment has become a populist reckoning. It's ordinary citizens versus the ruling class, victims versus enablers. Transparency versus secrecy. And every time lawmakers block release of the files, they pour gasoline on the fire of outrage. Even within the Republican Party, cracks are widening. Ralph Norman's defection may have been one vote, but it sent a signal that loyalty to secrecy isn't absolute. Chip Roy's absence suggested hesitation, maybe even fear. These aren't isolated moments, they're signs of a broader discomfort with being forced to shield the unshieldable. And while the amendment was blocked this time, Khanna made it clear, this isn't over. Democrats plan to keep reintroducing resolutions, week after week, month after month, until the files come out. Leaders like Hakeem Jeffries are already signaling support. Even some Republicans may eventually break ranks under pressure from their own voters. Because the longer secrecy drags on, the more the public will see it for what it is, a cover-up. Meanwhile, Musk's intervention has only intensified scrutiny. His words carried a simple message: stop pretending, stop stalling, stop lying, and millions agree. Online, calls for release are spreading like wildfire, and every day the files remain hidden. The pressure only grows stronger. This is more than a political fight. It's a moral crisis. It forces a question every American has to answer. Are you on the side of truth or the side of silence? Are you protecting the victims or protecting the predators? Because that's what this has become. The defining test of whether democracy still means accountability or whether elites will always win. And that's why this story isn't going away. Khanna has turned the release of the Epstein files into a referendum on trust itself. Musk has cut through the spin and amplified the outrage. Bondi has become the face of obstruction, and Congress now finds itself cornered, unable to dodge forever. The public is watching. They will remember. So the question remains, whose side are you on? The side of secrecy, corruption and protection for the powerful, or the side of transparency, accountability, and justice for victims? This isn't theater. It's the crossroads of democracy. And if you believe the truth must come out, then make your voice heard. Subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and share this video so more people see what's being hidden. Because the fight for transparency has only just begun, and together, we can force the powerful to face the truth they fear most.